That night, Ifunanya could not sleep. She sat by her window, looking at the moon, when she heard a soft knock on her door. She opened it to find a stranger, a tall man with piercing golden eyes. "Who are you?" she asked, stepping back. "I am Oka," the man said. "I am here because of the child you carry." Ifunanya gasped. "What do you know about my child?" "I know that it is no ordinary child," Oka said. "And I know that others will come for it, both humans and spirits. You must protect it at all cost." Before she could ask more, Oka turned and disappeared into the shadows. Ifunanya stood there, her heart pounding. Who was this mysterious man, and what did he want with her child? That night, Ifunanya had another strange dream. She saw herself standing in a dark forest, holding a glowing baby in her arms. Around her were shadowy figures, their eyes red with anger. A voice whispered in her ear, "Protect the child. The future of Amudaland depends on it." When she woke up, her hands were trembling. She knew the dream was a warning. But how could she protect a child she didn't even understand? The next morning, Queen Maid, the king's wife, called Ifunanya to her chamber. The queen was a proud and elegant woman, but her tone was cold as she spoke. "Ifunanya, sit." Ifunanya obeyed, her hands trembling. The queen's sharp eyes scanned her from head to toe. "I have heard the priest's words," Queen Maid said. "A spirit's child. Do you expect us to believe this story?" "My queen," Ifunanya whispered, "I do not understand it myself. I swear, I have done nothing wrong." The queen leaned closer, her voice low. "Whether you understand it or not, this situation brings shame to the palace. If anything happens to threaten the king, I will not hesitate to act. Do you understand?" Ifunanya nodded quickly. As she left the queen's chamber, she felt the weight of the queen's words pressing down on her. She was walking on a tightrope, and any misstep could cost her everything. Meanwhile, some of the palace guards gathered in secret, their faces grim. One of them, a young but ambitious man named Duro, spoke. "We cannot sit by while this maid brings danger to the palace. The priest himself said her child is not human. But the king has ordered us to protect her," another guard argued. Duro shook his head. "The king is blinded by his sense of justice. We must act before it's too late." "What do you propose?" a third guard asked. "We watch her," Duro replied. "And if the child is born, we make sure it does not live to bring ruin upon us." The other guards exchanged uneasy glances but said nothing. Duro's plan had been set in motion. Determined to protect her unborn child, Ifunanya sought out Baba Olu once more. This time, the priest led her to a hidden shrine deep in the forest. The shrine was small but beautiful, with carvings of ancient symbols and a glowing altar in the center. "Baba Olu," Ifunanya asked, "what is this place?" "This is a sacred place, protected by the gods," Baba Olu said. "Here, the spirits cannot harm you. But you must be careful. Human hands can still reach you, even here." The priest handed her a small amulet carved from black stone. "Wear this always," he said. "It will shield you and the child from dark forces." Ifunanya thanked him, feeling a small measure of hope. But as she left the shrine, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching her. That night, a terrible scream echoed through the palace. Ifunanya ran to the source of the noise and found one of the maids lying on the floor, her face pale with fear. The girl was pointing at the wall, where strange symbols had been scrawled in blood. "Live, or face the wrath of the spirits," the message read. The palace erupted in chaos. The maids were crying, the guards were on high alert, and even the king looked shaken. Ifunanya stood frozen, staring at the message. Was it meant for her? Baba Olu arrived and examined the symbols. "This is a warning," he said. "Someone, or something, wants Ifunanya to leave the palace. The king frowned. Who would dare to threaten my household? No one answered, but Ifunanya knew the truth. She had become a target, and the danger was closer than ever. As the palace quieted down after the commotion, Ifunanya snuck out to the garden, seeking solace. There, under the light of the full moon, the glittering snake appeared again. You are in danger, the snake said, its voice echoing in her mind. The forces against you are growing. If you know this, then help me. Ifunanya cried. I don't understand what is happening. Why was I chosen? Why my child? The snake's eyes glowed. The child you carry is a bridge between two worlds, the human and the spirit. It has the power to bring peace or destruction. That is why so many fear it. If it is so powerful, why must I suffer so much? She asked, tears streaming down her face. Great power always comes with a cost, the snake said. But you are stronger than you think. Protect the child, and one day, you will understand its purpose. Before Ifunanya could reply, the snake slithered away, disappearing into the shadows. She stood there, her resolve hardening. She would protect her child, no matter the cost. The next morning, as Ifunanya walked through the palace courtyard, she felt a sharp pain in her back. She turned and saw Duro, the guard, standing behind her with a knife in hand. His face was cold and determined. Stay back. Ifunanya screamed, clutching her belly. Duro stepped closer. I'm sorry, Ifunanya, but this is for the good of the palace. Your child is a threat to us all. Before he could strike, a gust of wind swept through the courtyard, knocking the knife from his hand. Duro fell to the ground, clutching his arm in pain. A strange energy filled the air, and everyone watching felt it. Baba Olu appeared, his staff glowing. Enough, he thundered. No harm will come to this woman or her child while I live. The guards hesitated, then pulled Duro away. Ifunanya collapsed to the ground, her body shaking. The attack had been stopped, but she knew it was only the beginning. Queen Maid sat in her private chamber, her thoughts heavy with worry. She had seen the fear in the palace after Duro's failed attack, and it only made her more certain Ifunanya and her unborn child were dangerous. She called for her most trusted servant, a cunning woman named Maid. Maid, the queen said, her voice low, this child that Ifunanya carries, it must not survive. But we must act carefully. The king will not tolerate open disobedience. Maid nodded, understanding the weight of the queen's words. What do you wish me to do, my queen? Find a way to make it look like an accident, the queen said, her eyes narrowing. If this child comes into the world, it could mean the end of us all. Maid bowed and left the chamber, her mind already working on a plan. Ifunanya began to notice strange occurrences around her. The palace animals, especially the birds and cats, seemed to gather near her wherever she went. Sometimes, they would sit quietly as if guarding her. Other times, they would hiss or screech when someone came too close. One afternoon, as she rested in the garden, she felt a warm energy pulse through her body. Her hands, which had been trembling with fear moments before, now felt steady and strong. What is happening to me? She whispered. Baba Olu, who had been watching her from a distance, approached. The child is growing stronger, he said. Its power is starting to flow through you. Is this why people fear me? Ifunanya asked. Partly, Baba Olu said. But remember, power is neither good nor evil. It is how you use it that matters. Be careful, Ifunanya. The stronger the child grows, the more enemies you will attract. Maria decided to act during one of Ifunanya's daily walks in the garden. She instructed 2 palace guards to prepare a hidden pit near the path. The plan was simple: lure Ifunanya into the trap and ensure she fell, ending the pregnancy. That evening, Mario approached Ifunanya with a kind smile. My dear, I heard the flowers near the garden's edge are blooming beautifully. Perhaps a walk there will help clear your mind. Ifunanya hesitated but nodded. Thank you, Mario. I could use some air. As Ifunanya strolled through the garden, Mario followed at a distance, watching eagerly. When Ifunanya stepped near the trap, a soft rustling sound caught her attention. She stopped and looked down, noticing the freshly disturbed earth. Before she could react, a flock of birds suddenly swooped down, circling her protectively. Their cries were deafening, and Mario stumbled back in fear. What is this? Mario whispered, retreating as the birds chased her away. Ifunanya, sensing something was wrong, quickly left the area, her heart pounding. The child inside her seemed to pulse with energy, as if warning her of the danger. The next day, King Oba Odigon called a meeting with his advisors. The tension in the palace was becoming unbearable, and he needed answers. What is happening in my household? The king demanded. Why is there so much fear and division? One of the senior advisors, an elder named Baligan, spoke up. My king, the child Ifunanya carries is unlike anything we have seen. It is causing unrest among the people. And what do you suggest I do? The king asked, his tone sharp. Baligan hesitated. Perhaps, it is time to consult the gods directly. We must know if this child is a blessing or a curse. The king nodded slowly. Very well. Prepare for the ritual. I will not allow this chaos to continue. Baba Olu led the king, Ifunanya, and a small group of advisors to the sacred forest. There, a large stone altar stood under an ancient tree. The priest began to chant, calling upon the gods to reveal the truth about the child. The wind howled, and the tree swayed as if alive. Suddenly, a bright light enveloped Ifunanya, lifting her off the ground. Her eyes glowed, and her voice echoed as she spoke words she didn't understand. The child is the bridge between two worlds, a deep, otherworldly voice said through her. It will bring peace or destruction, depending on how it is treated. Protect it, and you shall prosper. Harm it, and you shall face ruin. The light vanished, and Ifunanya collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The advisors were speechless, and even the king looked shaken. It is decided, the king said finally. We will protect Ifunanya and the child, no matter the cost. Despite the king's decree, not everyone was convinced. Queen Ayamite's anger burned hotter, and the guards who followed Duro began plotting in secret once more. They contacted a powerful sorcerer from a neighboring village, hoping to use dark magic to rid the palace of Ifunanya's child. The sorcerer, a man named Akand, arrived in the dead of night. His face was hidden by a dark hood, and his voice was like gravel. You want me to destroy the child? He asked, his tone cold. Yes, Duro said. Can it be done? Akand chuckled. It can. But it will cost you greatly. Are you willing to pay the price? Duro and his allies nodded, their determination outweighing their fear. They didn't realize that their decision would unleash a force far more dangerous than they could imagine. As Akand prepared his dark ritual, Ifunanya woke in the middle of the night with a start. Her belly glowed faintly, and she felt a child's energy surge through her. Without knowing why, she stood and walked to her window. Below, in the courtyard, she saw Akand chanting in the shadows, surrounded by the guards who had betrayed her. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through the palace, extinguishing Akand's candles. His chanting stopped, and he looked around, confused. A deep voice echoed through the night, "You shall not harm what the gods have chosen." Akand stumbled back, clutching his chest. The guards ran, their courage evaporating. Ifunanya watched from her window, her heart racing. She didn't understand what had happened, but she felt a sense of relief. The child was protected, for now. Akand, humiliated and defeated by the mysterious force that protected Ifunanya and her child, retreated to his dark cave on the outskirts of the village. There, surrounded by skulls and black candles, he plotted his next move. If the gods protect her, then I will call upon darker powers, he muttered to himself. He began to chant, summoning a shadowy spirit from the underworld. The air grew cold, and the flames on his candles flickered eerily. A low growl echoed in the cave as a dark figure emerged. "You dare summon me," the spirit hissed. "I seek vengeance," Akan said. "Help me destroy the one who carries the cursed child." The spirit laughed, its voice sharp like broken glass. "You think you can control me? I will take your life as payment." Akan hesitated but nodded, driven by his hatred for Ifunanya. The deal was struck, and the shadowy spirit disappeared, leaving Akan with an ominous feeling. His revenge would not come without a price. Meanwhile, in the palace, Duro and his fellow conspirators were growing nervous. Their failed attempt to harm Ifunanya had not gone unnoticed, and they feared the king would discover their treachery. "Akan will not fail us again," Duro said, trying to reassure the others. "He is more powerful than any priest or guard in this palace." "But what if he brings more trouble upon us?" one of the guards asked. "That child is not normal. I don't want to die because of your foolish plan." Duro grabbed the man by the collar, his face filled with anger. "Do you want to live in fear forever? If we don't act, that child will destroy us all." The others reluctantly agreed, though their faith in Duro's plan was waning. They decided to lie low for now, waiting for Akan to strike again. As Ifunanya's pregnancy progressed, strange things continued to happen. One evening, while sitting in her room, she heard a soft voice. "Mother." Ifunanya froze, her heart pounding. The voice seemed to come from within her. Who is there?" she whispered. "It is me," the voice said, gentle and calm. "Your child." Tears filled Ifunanya's eyes. "You can speak. But you are not yet born." "I am no ordinary child," the voice replied. "You must be strong, mother. Many will come to harm us, but you are not alone. I will protect you as you protect me." Ifunanya placed her hands on her belly, overwhelmed by a mix of fear and wonder. The child's words gave her courage, but they also reminded her of the incredible responsibility she bore. Queen Maid could feel the palace slipping out of her control. The king's decision to protect Ifunanya infuriated her, and the growing loyalty of the palace staff toward the mysterious Maid made her feel powerless. She called for Mariel again. "This has gone too far," the queen said, pacing her chamber. "The child must not be born. Do you understand me?" "My queen, I have tried," Mariel replied, bowing her head. "But something always protects her. It is as if the gods themselves are on her side."